It's one of those deals where I just suddenly, without really announcing it, I'll go like this. Welcome to a Sunday episode of Cannabis Legalization News. Joining us today is Sean. Is it pronounced Sean?
No, it's pronounced Shea Woon.
Shea Woon. I will probably butcher that.
It's got that Asian tone to it where, like, it's kind of funny because my son, he used to do he would fight, and his instructor would call him Sifu. So it just seems like you having that MMA background and that name is pretty badass.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I really do.
Seun, you have an MMA background. You're not just a cannabis dispenser.
Yeah, no, I did MMA for the promotion side of it, right? So I used to wrestle back in Illinois. I wrestled. I was really great. I went to state for wrestling. Wrestling has always been in my blood, is in my DNA, and I excelled at it. So I wanted to do something where when I opened my first shop in Eugene, Oregon, it was in the worst location you could ever think of it, right? So you wanted to
bad location in Eugene, Oregon?
Terrible location. Terrible location.
Why was it so bad?
It was hidden. It was not in the street front. It was really hidden. And to get customer to really pay attention or to see us, where the market is oversaturated and there were stores at every corner, we had to find a differentiator, like what made us different. And we had to find a community and a following, a cult following. And since I was, a wrestler, I thought MMA would be fun to do and just get into an octagon. Mm-hmm. And I put, Elevate on my back, and we went in there, and, I did pretty good.
You had the brand. You had the brand.
Yeah, I had the brand.
And then you're like, all right, I'm going to go put the brand on the back of me. And how did that work?
It went well. Like, I was 6-3. So I won 6 fights and I lost 3 fights. Some of them was by decision. One time I got super cocky because I was on a winning streak, and I tell people never get cocky because it never ends well. But at the end of the day, it was fun. I love it. It gave me the opportunity to build a brotherhood, and it was a fun time.
I was going to ask you too about coming out from out of state, because you're from Chicago area. Yeah. And to get to Northwest, I keep telling Tom, they got this weird culture out here. It's like a petri dish of its own little cannabis culture. And that's a great way to get involved into that, at least be embedded into that culture, with the MMA type stuff.
Yeah, it's super big out here. It's super big. So I loved it. The people are huge fanatics out here. They got some really stone cold killers. I was shocked. Even Spokane, Washington, you have some of the greats that came out. Mike Chiesa, Sam Cecilia, the first woman ultimate fighter to win, Juliana Pena. So she came out of Spokane, Washington. You'd be like, what, Washington? But so they got some amazing people coming out.
They definitely need cannabis then out there after they've gotten their asses kicked.
They sure do. They do. Yeah. They a lot of them use hemp product, for recovery. So it's really great. They're a part of the cannabis culture, and it's fun to watch.
That's awesome. So how old were you when you started your first cannabis dispensary?
I officially opened at the age of 23. I started at the age of 21. It was a process going through the regulations, reading everything, especially when you don't have enough capital, and you're underfunded. So I tell people, I was the COE, and what that means is chief of everything. Yeah. And I did legitly everything. I was my lawyer, my CEO, CFO, whatever you want to call it. I was it. It was hard, but I was passionate. I had a lot of hustle. I was determined, and I didn't know how to take no for an answer.
So then, all right, how did you pick Oregon then? If you are a budding cannabis entrepreneur, extremely motivated, not very well capitalized, why Oregon?
I saw a huge opportunity in Oregon because they removed the out-of-state requirements. So you could be an out-of-state resident. You come into Oregon, and you can open your dispensary. And at the time, they allowed each city to determine how many retail shops they were going to allow. So they really didn't have a cap. What it was they had a 1,000 square footage from a K-12 grade, 1,000 square footage from, one dispensary to another. So if you could really meet those criteria, you would have an opportunity to open your cannabis business.
Is Oregon vertically
a far cry from Illinois, where they only have the 75 licenses and the 4,000 applications?
Is Oregon vertically integrated?
Yeah, you could be vertically integrated, or you could just be a standalone retail store. It just all depends on your business model. If you look at Washington is a little different. You can't be fully vertical. You have to strictly pick what side of the aisle you want to walk on. Whether you want to be a cultivator, that's all you can do. If you want to be a retailer, that's all you can do.
And you chose to be a store. That's pretty cool, though. I mean, that's a great. I think I was telling Tom because he wants to get his hands on wash. I was like, the low overhead's going to be a store opposed to being a grow. I think.
Overhead. For retail or cultivation, it depends on what state you go into. I think that cultivation, if you have a lot of experience, you could do it for the low. It comes down to experience, right? It's like me trying to do what you're doing, Tom. If I started this right now, you will kick me back and forth because you just know the logistic. You understand how things work. You know what your target audience is. So it just kind of all depends.
Yeah, it really is. But your passion and your stick-to-itiveness and then your motivation. But how much capital did you open this store for?
I only had 50,000 and a dream. It was legitly, I slept in my shop for a whole year. I hammered everything in. I installed the cameras. I went to buy the safe. I did the floor. I got two of my buddies and we drove to Oregon, and I was like, this is what I need. This is what we're going to do. One of them was actually a police officer at the time. So it was yeah. So he was head of security. So it was a fun process, and we got it done. But once I got everything done, the second hurdle was, how do you secure product in a market where you're under capitalized? So at the age of 13, I got arrested for marijuana possession, in Illinois. So what we did in the street was spot me the product. So in the corporate world,
are you?
Right, consignment, So, I started emailing everyone. I said, hey guys, blah, blah, blah. I love your brand. We'd love to have you at the shop. Boom, boom, boom. Really cultivate those real relationship. I remember when my shop opened up, we legitly only had like 12 flowers. I still have the picture, and you had display cases that were super empty. And I knew if I did not open up, we were going to go out of business because I ran out of money. And I was like, what? Yeah. I was like, we got to open today. No ifs and buts about it. So we got it done and marked up the product, and we were able to, I slept in my shop. I worked from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. every single day. It took a lot.
I think they yanked your license in Illinois. It was like, well, what do you mean you're sleeping in the place? Yeah.
No, so they would have did the same thing in Oregon, but we divided it up to whereby there was a living arrangement. So in the back, it was actually used to be a house. So it worked out perfectly for me.
Well, that's very fortunate. And then you mentioned this MMA marketing that you did. Did you have MMA events or nights or anything, or was the only sponsorship on your regalia when you go to the fight?
No, it was different companies that gave me money, and I put my company too on there as the biggest brand that was on my shorts or T-shirts or different things like that.
How long did it take you after your storefront to become Multistorefront?
It took us a year and a half.
How about profitable?
Within the first 6 months, I was profitable because I was the only one working.
Not like you had 10 full-time employees.
Then later on, of course, I started hiring people. But yeah, it was, if I did it all by myself and I continued to do that, I would have been okay.
So you went from Oregon to Massachusetts?
That's correct.
Nice.
What brings you there?
I started, like I said, Oregon is an oversaturated market. They uplifted or removed the 1,000 square footage buffer from one dispensary to another. So what you started seeing was dispensaries were opening up right next to each other, right? So profit margins started decreasing. So you start thinking to yourself, is this sustainable in 5 years? We can make enough to survive, but is that what I set out to do, just to survive? So I started looking at myself. I had the option to continue to open shops in Oregon. It made no sense. People were doing it. I don't know what their business model was. It was idiotic to me. You had people that was going to Cali. I thought, to me, was Cali was going to be oversaturated market. 80% of illegal products were coming from Cali. It made no sense. You had like big name people like Snoop Dogg. You had some of the best, rappers that stay in Cali, and they're cultivating a brand, and they already have a cult following. So what kind of market share were you truly going to get in a state like Cali? And the license process is very confusing. You had each municipality that had their own specific way of acquiring a license. Oakland had a process, Los Angeles had a process, San Francisco had a process. So it was a cluster, for me. So I looked at Massachusetts. I love Massachusetts because it was highly regulated. And when you see a state that's highly regulated, that's a state that's highly profitable. So I took all my, capital. I went to Massachusetts. I read the laws. I hired the #1 attorney, cannabis attorney, Paul Feldman in Massachusetts. I started doing property acquisition. I started lobbying to go in and lobbying the different municipalities we were looking to go into. Now, keep in mind, this whole time we talked about Massachusetts, most people would have been like, I want to go to Boston. What I did was, I don't have Boston money. I understood that, because when you look at going into Boston, it costs you about $100,000 to $200,000 a month to lease out a property.
I tell people that in Chicago, when the Chicago math came up for the Illinois dispensaries. And so you said that you applied for Illinois?
I did apply for Illinois. So we have 7 applications in right now. 2 of them are solely owned by Elev8 Cannabis. The others are owned by different entities, social equity entities that we partner up with. We have a licensing agreement with them where we help them with operation, marketing, branding. We see it as a win-win situation. I don't own equity in their company, but we take gross profit. We take some percentage of revenue.
That's great. You mentioned that you were a social equity applicant, in the sense that you got arrested when you were 13. So you didn't have to share the company as you expanded into Illinois. But did you see the same type of thing where there's Chicago money and then there's the rest of the state on the border money, which is substantially lower?
Yeah, that's exactly what I saw. Being on the border, property acquisition is a lot cheaper. A lot of people are not paying. Regulatory, I would say that the lobbying efforts are a lot cheaper, right? To get in front of a mayor in a smaller town or community is a lot easier for you to obtain than you to go to a city like Chicago, where there's a lot of hurdles for you to jump through in order to get in touch, or you just got to be well known or well connected. Right. In smaller communities, the mayors are easily accessible, I would say. So that's my strategy. It's like, I can't afford Chicago. I'm not ashamed of it. Or I can't afford Boston. And I'm thinking longevity, right? When you look at Washington, you look at Oregon, some of the most profitable stores are on the border of small towns of 8,000 people, 10,000 people. In Oregon right now, the most profitable store, when people think of Oregon, they're like Portland. No, it's not Portland. The most profitable store is on the border of about 5,000 people in population, Boise, Idaho, right there in Washington.
I thought nobody ever from Idaho ever smoked weed.
No, never.
Well,
And
Mike Crapo
never,
back from the Senate, because I mean, like, you read Mike Crapo's shit out of the Senate and like what he did to the Safe Banking Act, it makes me think that nobody in Idaho has ever seen weed.
Yeah, no, not at all. Never seen weed at all. But their people definitely come and give us their tax dollar money. So we're not, you know, to me, I'm like, you know, for every state that's not getting it right, that's okay. I'm not mad at you.
Illinois, I'm sorry, Iowa. I mean, there's the Kentucky, though. That's actually, I got this thing set up. I'm going to go do a bit about Kentucky's medical marijuana law that just came out. So, yeah, you know, stick around. In a couple more years, we might help you open up in Kentucky, like a little border of Tennessee somewhere, you know? That'd be
I love it.
Good model there. Huh?
I love it.
Hey, Seun, Oregon, man. I mean, being at your first dispensary, and that's where you went to. Well, do you call it dispensary? What do you call your shops?
Elev8 Cannabis.
Well, no, I mean, like some people, like you know, we don't call them medical dispensaries no more because it's not medical; it's recreational. You know, pot shops or recreational stores. People like to call them. I like to call them pot shops, but after Oregon, because Oregon's kind of everybody has this idea of the Pacific Northwest about a bunch of hippies and this whole social justice warrior thing. And how was your like your beginnings out there, man? How did you experience like Oregon? What was your perspective of that?
You know,
black culture type
stuff. Yeah. So, you know, I'm the only black-owned dispensary in Eugene, Oregon. 1, 2. We had people destroying our signs. I paid a lot of money for it. They were, you know, but guess what?
Racism, or just was like, that just competition?
It was, you know, we had competition leaving us bad reviews, but when you go and look at our reviews, people, you know, I had to call a dispensary owner because we found out, one of my friends, you know, like Googled the name and found out this guy worked at a competitor, right, and was just leaving us bad reviews. Yeah, just, you know, so, you know, part of it, whether it was racism, they didn't scare me off, you know, like, like I sat there and I was like, you destroy my sign, I'm gonna buy a new sign and we're gonna continue to do business. And I think after being there for 3 years, they just got tired of us and it was like, damn, we can't chase them away. So we got to work with them, you know, so staying positive and, you know, overcoming, you know, some people lack of education, right, and just, you know, not stooping to their level. That's exactly what we did. So, but we faced some hardship, but I didn't let it deter my, you know, I was determined and they were not going to stop me.
Yeah, that's so crucial when you're an entrepreneur. It's like, no, I'm doing this, going there, man. But yeah. Panama Perp asks, wearing masks, bro. So we have locations in Athol, Orange, and Williamstown. Our first location is going to be opening up in Athol. Our goal is before 420. We're just waiting on the Cannabis Control Commission to do our final walkthrough. Once that is done, we'll be good to open our doors. So do you already have established relationships with cultivators?
Yeah, we have some, but we're looking to cultivate more.
Awesome. How do you go about sourcing product?
Honestly, usually we just use in Oregon, you use like metrics, or there's a database where like the state shows you who's who is approved to sell product, right? Or you have a lot of people reach out to you because Oregon is an oversaturated market. Now, when you go to Massachusetts, how do you source product where there's a shortage of product? Relationship.
Right on.
Interesting.
I like how you've been speaking about how when you go to your different places and you're lobbying. I was listening to one of your earlier speeches, how you talked about Chicago's culture and an alderman. You know, I didn't know what an alderman was until I saw that one movie of Chris Rock where he was an alderman.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think anybody else has an alderman but you guys.
I think alderman it's Germanic for old man, right? Alderman, and then I think it's a remnant of the Dutch, you know, because like city council, we got city councilmen down here in downstate Illinois, but in Chicago, for some reason, they got aldermen.
But like, Seun, what made you think about the political side first? In part of your business, you go to the councilmen, you're going to your local areas representation. you're not even like hard charging, like I'm doing this. First, you're negotiating, creating that relationship. What made you think of that?
I think relationship is everything. You're trying to go into their specific district. You want to make sure that they know who you are. I think getting the people buy-in is very important. Getting your alderman buy-in is very important. Getting them to support you is very important. Getting them to know, because at the end of the day, I think most politicians, their goal is to get reelected and do good for their jurisdiction. That's their goal. That's, most of them, like from what I've seen, and that's their goal. So if you show them that you know what you're doing and you're educated about the industry in which you're pursuing, I think a lot of them see the social injustice and they want to uplift those good actors, those good players, and they want to support them and help them. From my journey, I even talked about not being in Boston, but I want to just mention this. When I did have a location in Boston, I had a lease agreement in East Boston and everything was going well. But the owner of the property said his sister is a professor and she does not feel comfortable with having a cannabis business in their facility. Now, because of that, I could have sued him. I had the lease. I had the city councilor that supported us. We had everything on our side. But how it works is you have to get a host community agreement. What that means is you got to get a host community agreement and non-opposition in Massachusetts. And what that means is you have to get your landlord to support you. Man, so I could have sued him, but imagine he came to every meeting. It's like, I don't want this in my building, blah, blah, blah. This is terrible. This affect it. I would have lost a lot of money. It would have sucked. So, sometimes you got to be strategic. And, but yeah.
Yeah. I always educate the teams about like, no, who's your community outreach? All right. Where do you want to be located? Okay. Who's the councilman? Who's the county boardman? Who's the zoning guy? But in Illinois, we don't need that type of actual agreement with the county that you need in Massachusetts. And I think that reflects the different type of licensing structures. So in Massachusetts, it's more of a licensing structure that comes from the municipality, and they're allowed to set the number of licenses, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Do they have any social equity aspects to the Massachusetts process?
Yeah, they do. So Massachusetts currently have 200 plus social equity applicants. They opened up the portal in 2018 in April. During this process, the people that got approved. And you have to meet 3 out of 6 criterias. Now, the social equity, like I tell people, everybody, you can be social equity. It gives you the ability to be first in line, but you can't do nothing if you don't have capital to build out your company. Like, I don't care how much.
But they're going to say, but you did it with $50,000.
Yeah. That's what people say sometimes. They're like, you did it. Like, I'm like, there's a different type of, like, I struggled. I wish I didn't do it for that. Like, I struggled. Like, I would never want someone to go through the same type of hardship that I went through.
If you're going to educate somebody then and mentor them, and they want to get into Chicago or Boston prices for opening their dispensary versus if they want to get into the collar counties, the more rural edge counties of a state, how would you advise them on like how much capital they need for those ventures?
I would say get a mill. Get $1 million if you're looking into retail. If you're looking into cultivation, get a mill to 50 mil for cultivation.
I was through 50. I like how there's plenty of runway.
Yeah, like I was, in all honesty, unless you have experience in education within the industry, I think you could do it for a lot lower. Like for me, if you are willing to put in a lot of sweat equity and you're knowledgeable, I say knowledge is power. But if you don't have knowledge, there's going to be a lot of mistakes you're going to make before you get to the finish line. And that's why I say
many people want in too, and they don't have this experience. They don't have that knowledge. So if you're trying to get into the industry and you don't have that experience, you don't have that knowledge, maybe you do have the million. What do you recommend?
I said mentorship, partner up with somebody that has experience. I think a lot of people, I remember there was a scenario in Massachusetts. Boston Globe wrote about it in different publication. But there was this company giving out loans to minority social equity applicants and different things like that. And we raised $1 million. This company gave me $1 million, and how the company structures were. I got $1 million for 60% of my shelf space. Contract was for about a 3-year period. We use their technology in Oregon. They're a great company, and I remember
the sale kind of like a Metric or a BioTrack THC.
They own Baker, Blackbird, and different technology companies like that. So we raised the capital with them. They were super impressed by me, and I love the ex-city councilor of Boston. His name is Tita Jackson. He kind of facilitated this, but I knocked it out the park. Right now, we try to get more social equity applicants in on this, and some of them felt like the loan or the deal structure was way too hefty for them. And keep in mind, in Massachusetts, you get 3 licenses, right? Being a social equity applicant, you're the first to open. There's this company called Netta. They're in Brookline. They're the #1 revenue grossing dispensary in the whole United States. They make $300,000 a day. Every day they're making $300,000, right? Then you look at that, and we're telling social equity applicants, I'm like, hey, this is a good idea, because even though if they own 9.9% of your company, the amount of, you still have 2 other licenses that you can tap into after you make your money. They have experience. Let them fail. If they're going to fail, they have so much money that it's not failing. You take the knowledge and you take the experience.
You're getting paid to learn.
Yeah, I encourage other people, to take the deal, but it became a big deal. Like, it was bad, and for me, I think that my struggle, knowing how hard it is to raise capital in a highly regulated industry, where no banks want to do business with you, and you have an opportunity to get $1 million, I say take it. I don't think that you should be in a where they take all your company, but take it in the aspect of learn from it, like in the sense of get your foot in the door. If you're open, you're generating revenue, you're able to go to your store and learn from it. You can really set yourself apart, because knowledge is power. So now when other states, there's 50 states in the United States, there's only 11 states with some type of recreational medical regulation right now. So there's more states that are going to open up down the road.
That's right.
If you get in right now, you have the opportunity to really set yourself aside from everybody else.
Are you looking at Oklahoma or any other states like that?
We're looking at everywhere. Honestly, our goal is to go. We're looking to partner up with social equity applicants. We're looking to license out. We're looking to own outright. We want to be. We believe that we could be a real big player in this industry. It's very new. Knowledge is power, like I said, and there's it's a free for all right now.
Why do you think there's so many companies, cannabis companies, multi-state cannabis companies out there right now having trouble raising money and shutting down maybe?
Yeah. So, Canada about 6 months ago, if you would have asked me this 6 months ago, Canada was putting a huge influx of capital into the U.S. market, right? So after, all these big corporations, they went out, bought licenses. Some companies have 50 licenses, 60 licenses. But then you dive into that, how many of them are actually active? How many of them are actually operational? It's just a few of them, right? It's like, you see companies with 50 licenses, but 12 are actually operational, because the time process in order for you to change your license, change your ownership, takes time. For us, even as a small business operator, it's taken us about a year just to change our license. We just did a license acquisition here in Oregon. It's taken us a year just to finalize that and reopen. It's not because we're not ready. It's because the state, their process, their backlog, we have to consider that too. Then, taking that into consideration, big MSOs right now, in order to get capital, because Canada is like, we're going to see what you guys are going to do with all this licenses you have. They're trying to see what big corporations are actually going to be profitable. Then you're going to see more investors dive in, and more investment is going to come back into the cannabis industry. But right now, everybody's just seeing who can be profitable. You see a lot of big MSOs, they're going to go out of business. You see a lot of bad actors that, they felt like, they were just on top of the world. But now, they're crumbling. So I think the biggest thing for us is organization health. A lot of people focus on revenue and they forget about the organization health part. And I think that that's what we do really well.
Do you think a lot of times too, these companies like the MedMens, they kind of understand the consumer, but at the same token, they miss the mark? Like right now, I'm really happy to have you on as our guest today. For one, it's a cannabis where we talk about activism, but also two, it's goddamn Black History Month. And I haven't seen any cannabis content about Black activists in any of the goddamn social media, High Times, anybody. And it's really upsetting. Like right now, I'm feeling better. I've been sick before, but I'm working on my own content for Black History Month, and I hope they have it done before goddamn the end of the month. But
an extra day this year, so one extra day in February.
I love it.
But the point being is, it seems to be for a social equity industry, they're missing the mark. Like, this is Black freaking History Month, the whole month of a racist law devoted. We could.
The 13th Amendment, the little, that whole oops that's there. It's like, well, we can't have slaves, but what if they're criminals? Okay, then we can have slaves. The huge glaring hole in the whole freedom.
The whole Jim Crow thing. It just seems like everybody's missing the mark, and it just seems to be done more from the bigger players. Do you think?
From the bigger player aspect, when I was speaking to the NCAA, we had a 50-man panel. We have big MSOs like Cresco's, all the executive teams from different like Acreage and different places like that. We have police chiefs, and we were sitting down and we were talking about the illicit markets versus the unillicit market. Everybody had different presentations, different viewpoints, and what we can do to get more social equity people into the cannabis industry, right? We have different states where they're making their best effort. But you see Oakland, they have a process where they give social equity $100,000 and they help them with 1 year free rent. That's great. Now we're talking about a highly regulated industry where it's not just about capital. It's not just about license now. We got to look at how do we make sure these people succeed, right? So you got to look at the taxation within the cannabis industry. Most states are 3%. City tax, you got 17% city state tax. And when you combine that with federal tax, employee tax, you could be from 50% all the way to 110% if you don't structure your business properly. So my biggest thing is, yes, all this conversation on social equity is great. I love it, and I want us to continue to have it. But outside of that, what about the applicants, the social equity applicants that are currently active right now with licenses? How are they being helped, right? This, I don't believe because you're in a zip code, you should actually get a social equity certification. I don't. I think that you have to have a level of hustle to pursue being a social equity. I'm a social equity applicant. And I feel for everybody, but I don't think that the right people that need it, that want it, they're passionate about the industry, are not necessarily the one getting it. Yeah. And the people that are getting it are being taken advantage of by big corporation because, one, they don't really want it. Sometimes I don't know their story, or they're miseducated. So, for me, it's like, I said it again. I don't believe because you're in a zip code, you should get that. And I think that if big corporations want to help, is stop taking advantage of social equity applicants. I think that they should mentor social equity applicants because outside of money, guys, I don't care how much money somebody has, is what do you do with that money? You see people winning lottery and they spend it and it's gone. is lack of the education aspect of it. So I advocated in the NCAA board meeting that we just had this about Thursday or Friday. I advocated for more mentorship. I advocated for mentorship where you don't take people businesses, you don't string arm them, you don't have backdoors agreement where you're going to take their entity with one small mistake because if the mentorship piece is missing, right? Think about this. This is a highly regulated industry. The state comes in and does surprise visit, right? Their business is going to go out of business if they find that it's not being compliant. You're synced into metrics. A lot of times people don't know how to use metrics properly, or they just click on buttons and it's sending the wrong signal. And I think my biggest fear is social equity, successful social equity, right? And I think the biggest thing we got to do is, I
think that we just have another ancillary business opportunity. It's the ancillary business opportunity of here's how you run a cannabis business. And then, so you take those, you get the certification. We give you a little PDF email. It's good for a year or so many months. So like I just got one back from SEM Rush. They're an SEO provider that I use to have people find me on the internet. But then if you don't know how to run those things appropriately and properly, or tax management strategy, or cash flow management, or you've been running your business rent-free for a year, and now that's going to start coming up. How well have you been taking care of your books and records, or were you just taking the money as it came in? And it's going to be a surprise for you. How well do you get around IRC 280E? Like, so does your company, does Elev8 Cannabis have specific methods and SOPs to try to bifurcate the trafficking expenses from the cost of goods sold?
Absolutely. Just the classifications of our employees, right? So, we have inventory managers, right? We have people that will sit in the back and roll pre-rolls for hours, right? We have people where we separate, like, let's say we have one of our buildings is 2,000 square footage. We only sell cannabis in like 500 square footage of it, and the rest is paraphernalia. Now, we could write off the rest. We can't write off where we're selling cannabis. So little gems like that, a lot of people don't know that. So it's like, what can you, this took me a lot of years of making mistakes just to split this out there and just say, this is this. Or being vertically integrated. A lot of reason why people are vertically integrated because they use some of those, you can't write off your marketing expenses, right? Different things like that is like, how do you, not avoid it, but what can you do? How the knowledge that it takes to be like, okay, this is how I can keep majority of my money. This is how I'm going to lose it if I don't do this.
Do you plan on white labeling in Oregon or anywhere? Elev8 Cannabis. I mean, honestly, that's a stoner's dream, right? To have your own strain, your own brand out there.
Yeah, that's our goal. So we have a partnership right now with a fully licensed cultivator in Massachusetts, where we are going to be fully vertical. So they have their license. It's going to be called Elev8 Farms. It's just the cultivator names are just incredible. So we're combining and we're working together, be vertically integrated. So outside of having 3 stores, we also have a cultivation facility in Mass where we're looking to really expand and create a brand out there.
How do they regulate cultivation in Mass?
I don't know. The cultivation side of things is not my expertise.
That's why different.
It's a little different. The cultivation side is not my expertise, but I do work with my partner that is an expert at that can definitely answer that better than I would.
Do you participate in any inspections, frolic up and down the aisles?
I've not participated in an inspection in the cultivation side of things. In the retail side of things, yes, we have participated in an inspection. We had to do it the first time we opened our shop in Eugene, Oregon. We see what that process looked like. We also, the state is very good at giving you the precise checklist that you have to get done before they come down and inspect your building. So we do our own little walkthrough to make sure everything is on point.
Nice.
How different are your SOPs then from Illinois to Massachusetts to Oregon? Do you have to maintain separate books, separate companies?
Yeah, we do, because when per state you have to create your own new entities. So Oregon, for example, is Elev8 Cannabis Inc. Oregon, right? Then we have Elev8 Cannabis Inc. Massachusetts. So the books is all separated. We don't combine them at all.
That meeting you were talking about with the NCAA that just happened recently, I know it was kind of controversial because there was no cameras allowed because they were talking about the illicit market, or traditional, as I like to call it.
The untaxed market, Miggy.
Untaxed. Yeah. But I understand the controversy because you're talking to cops about like, it just seems to me they're constantly trying to wrap their heads around like, well, I don't understand how I can't arrest this guy for over an ounce or below an ounce when it should just be something non-discrim, right? At this point, they should just be like, hey, I smell weed, not my problem.
Mm-hmm. I think we just got to keep educating. I think is just really educating the cops, the enforcement. I think that what NCAA did was really great, because you're bringing people with questions. You're bringing them in a room with a lot of people with answers. And we're trying to figure out, like, how can we make sure that, the police officers are educated? How can we partner up with them? And someone made a great suggestions, right? So if you're looking to get in the cannabis industry, partner up with the police officer, let them walk your facility. It's a partnership, because if something goes wrong in your dispensary, you saw a dispensary get break into in Illinois not too long ago. It was a huge headline there, right? Who are you going to call? You're going to call the cops. To make so for me, it's like we gotta learn how to work together. So education is power. So their education about the legal cannabis industry, the only way we could redirect that is by educating them.
I know Shalene Kyle was in the audience too, and she gave it good reviews. So.
Yeah, no, she was amazing. Shalene is always amazing, huge advocate for social equity. Every time I see her talk about social equity, I'm just like, yes, like I just shut up and stop talking. A huge fan of hers. She's amazing.
So how do you think we address the untaxed cannabis market?
I think one, we got to just make it legal for the states. We can answer the question in two ways, right? We have states that are currently not legal. I think they need to go legal. That's one way. A second way is the states that are legal, you have cities that are still banning them. So because the state goes legal, that don't mean the city is going to allow them. So I think that those cities need to yield to what the people want, what the voters want, and get out their feelings and actually allow this, so people are not being arrested for marijuana possession. I think that right there is the way that we could really solve this problem. And interstate, being able to ship from Oregon to, Massachusetts, for example, and different things like that. I think it would drop the cost of price down to whereby people can now start competing with the black market.
Well, think about if IRC 280E was gone. How much lower could you make the price of your flower without eating into your existing margin?
I agree. Greatly. So, I think that, that would be a big help. A lot more dispensary would be more profitable. So, yeah, I'm with you.
Fewer audits, you know, less people getting their licenses in trouble. And then not only that, I think that the black market will always have to sell at a discount to the regulated market, because the regulated market is or the taxed market, untaxed. When you're growing it untaxed, you're doing it secretly, and you're doing it without trying to get caught, as opposed to when you're growing it pursuant to a license and you're trying to grow it to be the best. And so when you're trying to grow it to be the best, like I quit buying untaxed weed after I got my medical card, because I became a huge snob. It was worth the extra $5-10 an eighth. And so like now when I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, you can sell high quality premium flower at a premium price over the black market, but what price, where is it before you're going to have to just crowd them out?
And we also got to look at safety, right? We have the cartridge crisis. Products are not being tested in the illicit market. We got to take that into consideration. A lot of people, they don't know what they're smoking at times. And, I know people that sell in the black market. I think they, some of them truly have some great product. Now, how do you translate, from selling in the black market to the legal market. I think that the hardship for them is people's like, oh, because they sold illegally, they could operate and run a business. And I said, no, I push back on that. The reason why I say no is due to the fact that when they were selling, or when I had no tax, I had no overhead. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? It was a different ball game. And people think it's a walk in the park to operate a business. Is not a walk in the park, especially a highly regulated business. So I'm going to go back to mentorship. And outside of that, talking about, just, the illicit market, and also my comparison to being like, a DECA dreamer. The biggest thing for me is like, I can compare both of them.
Wait, you're a DECA dreamer?
Yeah. I'm a DECA dreamer.
Wait, you're not an American citizen, are you?
No, I'm not an American citizen.
Why aren't you getting deported then? Because
no, so I got a green card now.
But
I got a green card.
Complicit in the violation of federal law. And so sometimes when immigrants want to get into the cannabis industry, I say, no, you shouldn't. Now I'm going to be like, I got to talk to Seun, and we're going to get him on the line and see what he thinks. Because that's a legitimate thing. A lot of people that aren't from America want to get into the industry, but I think it's a condition of the green card or anything like that. So like if the Trump administration, and he's not watching, we know, finds out, like, couldn't they revoke your green card and deport you because you're committing a federal crime?
From if I was a DECA child, yes, they could have done that, right? So if I was still a DECA dreamer, I could have had that, revoked, and I could have went to jail, right? So the comparison with being a DECA and being in the cannabis industry, right, is the uncertainty. Right. So if for a fact that if you look at DECA dreamers, imagine they go into a bar and they get into a bar fight. Most citizens or green card holders, they're worried about getting arrested. And that's it. A DECA dreamer, they're worried about being deported to a state or country they've never been to. They can't speak the language. They don't have friends or family there. This is all they have as home. So now when you look at the cannabis industry, you're looking at a highly regulated industry where it is still federally illegal. So if you like if the federal government wants to come down and close down your business, they could do that. All your livelihood, your investment, your hopes, your dreams are gone. And that's how DECA childs feel right now. And that's the comparison I can make between the cannabis industry and DECA.
Being an immigrant, is there any extra hurdles that you had to go through for ownership when it comes to, living the American dream?
I think my hunger is just more. It's just fierce. I grew up not having nothing. I grew up with nothing. So the possibility of me failing, like who's gonna care? What I mean? Like I never had nothing. Yeah. So if I lose it all, it's not gonna be headlines. It's like,
so you have a fairly healthy entitlement complex, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So I grew up not having nothing. So in my that's why I could take the risk, because I'm like, I'd rather be a dreamer and fail than not go after my dreams. Right. Why not?
That's right.
The youngest black owner of Cannabis Business, bi-coastal. That's a pretty good, accomplishment, man.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's really kind of you. That's kind of you. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, it appears
my laptop is about to die, so I'm about to charge the technical difficulties.
All right, well, if you drop off, the link still works. You can just come back on. But that's really awesome that you were able to, through the determination and then some luck. I mean, like, do you think the $50,000 opportunity to get into a cannabis dispensary ownership is still something that's available to the cannabis entrepreneur in 2020?
I would never say never. But you're gonna cry, or I'm not gonna say it's not possible, but for it to be possible, I would say you probably had a lot of connections. You probably negotiated with your landlord that says, hey, I don't want to pay any lease until my store, or I start generating revenue, or I think anything is possible if you have enough hustle and you're well educated and you have relationship. Relationship is power. It's like me going to my friend and say, hey, Bob, I want to use your property for cannabis. Bob is like, okay, usually it's going to cost you $100,000, but I like you. We're good friends. Don't worry about it, right? So all you have to do now is get security. Can you buy security? Boom. You got to get a safe. Can you get a safe? Boom. So your costs are decreasing because so I always tell people anything is possible, but it's like a 1% chance, you know, for that to actually happen, to have all those ducks in a row, because now, you know, in 2020, everybody's trying to get in. Big corporation more than ever is trying to take over. People are trying to create a brand, and they're trying to go everywhere cannabis is legalized.
So how long did it take you to come up with the brand Elev8 Cannabis?
You know, I played around with it. I knew I wanted the name to be called Elevate. I just didn't know how the logo was going to look. I think that's what I struggled with. And we just recently changed the logo about a month ago, or not a month ago, so it's been a couple of months now. So that's the new logo. Okay, boom, it's on this side. So that's the new logo. We revamped our website. We worked with a great branding agency called Illustrious to really help us define who we are, and
Well, and the diversity of your staff is pretty amazing too, dude. The women and minorities.
Absolutely. That was my goal. Is like, you know, I believe treat everyone like gold, and I think if you really want to get anything done right, my mom always said, get a woman on your team, and you will succeed. No, so they're hustlers, like they're fierce. Like I in my company, I think I'm the nicest one. Like I really think, like I look at my employees, I'm like, I'd rather not mess with her. You know, in my head, it's like I really think I'm the nicest one. The ladies do not play. They are on point, and they're way more organized than I am. I give them all the praises. They make me look great, but they're just hardworking people.
So you went from one store, and then you said in a year before you went to the next one, and that's your $50,000. And what did you save up to the next point? What was your next, like, oh, I got $500,000 saved up, let's do this?
No, I didn't even have enough money to go after my next shop. It was more about hustle, right? It's a knowledge. Now, I tell people knowledge is power, right? So we had enough to get there to open, and we did a partnership, you know, but the partnership didn't work out. So I had to buy the person out because our ethos did not match. And I didn't see myself moving forward with that type of partnership. So when I went there, I had the money, but then I didn't have enough because my partner was coming in with the rest. So I had essentially half of it, right? So when we went there, you know, I did the property acquisition. I lobbied, I did everything myself. Then to do construction, to finalize everything, I brought a partner in. But I then realized that, you know, the way we want to do business and how we saw things were totally different. So I had to cut that partner up.
Do you have like a financier be able to like pay for a note or a promissory?
No,
just cash.
Yeah, so it was just using the remainder of our capital. I just said, you know, I just bought him out. It was not worth the headache. I negotiated a lot of deals, and he was just, you know, people talk about, oh, I'm gonna sue you. But do you know the process of suing somebody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we do. Okay, you're a lawyer, Tom. But let me say this for everyone that goes around and say you want to sue somebody. It is a process, right?
Years.
So
years of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Thank you. So I would say I'm a diplomat. Right. Like that's who I am.
Right.
So I sat there and, you know, we negotiated some deals. And he, you know, went on a call and just like, you know, I'm gonna sue you, your mom, this and this. And this person was like, okay, I'm gonna make sure you guys don't get open. I was like, look, I've been working on this for months, and you just come in here because you're angry or your ego, and you just try to crush everything I worked hard for. And, you know, and you saying you're going to sue him, That's a lot of money. And that's why I tell people when I know you're a true business person, you just don't throw the word, I'm gonna sue you. Like you don't throw that lightly. You know what I mean? So, you know,
the contracts that I make for my, my clients, there's no lawsuits.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love it, Tom. So, you know, at the end of the day, that's what happened. But I needed money, and we were able to raise some capital from Tilt Holding. We signed a $1 million with an option of $2 million. And that's how I was able to raise more capital to finish my project in Mass.
Yeah, but you got to be so careful when you're going into business with these, and then with going into business with anybody, but then also when you're going into business in Illinois or any of these social equity market games, where they ask for this combination of somebody who's got social equity who usually doesn't have the money, or somebody else who's got the experience who doesn't have the social equity. And so, yeah, it just happened. One of my teams blew up over the weekend. All of a sudden, the social equity guy was like, well, I want everything. I'm like, well, okay, it's, you know, and then boom, they're gone. And you're like, all right. So you couldn't trust them. Yeah. Better that it happened now, you know?
Yeah. And you know, it's like being in a marriage. I tell people, if you're going into we're buddies, I'm going to bring you on, like really vet people. Money change people, partnership change people, like get everything on paper. I don't care what it is. I want you to define everybody's job. I want you to define define your marriage, then define your divorce. Because what I do, like I'm serious. I do.
You're 100% accurate, but then 90% of people don't effing get this, man. And like and I explain it but everybody's special. You see, that's the thing. Everybody thinks they're special. They aren't really special. And then most people don't want to have this. This is difficult because you're like, what do you mean this is going to fail? I don't have to think about it failing. It's not going to. Yeah, you do. You kind of actually have to think about that, because what happens if it does and you have no plan, you know?
Yeah. And I tell people, look, we can disagree. You can disagree with me, right? But guess what? If we in an agreement, what's gonna happen is we signed this when we were in our sane mind. So now that we're having miscommunication, we were both sane when we signed this agreement. So you're gonna shut the, and we're gonna use this agreement to tell us the direction we want to go. So that's what we're going to do. So I remember when I bought a property in Williamstown, Massachusetts, I didn't have enough capital for it. It was worth $1 million, but I negotiated to $250,000, right? We put a down payment. We had a PNS, for about 6 months, right? The cannabis company started opening up and they started looking at the revenue. Now people wanted to buy the property for more than $1 million. So the landlord, the owner of the property, calls me and was like, "Hey, Seun, my son wants the property now, blah blah blah." And in my head, I was like, I really don't give a fuck who wants the property. I just was like, look, I was like, we have an agreement. Regardless of how you feel, you're trying to pull my heartstring. Like I really don't have that. It's just like, this is what we agreed on. This is the path we're going. If you're not going to, then I'm really going to sue you, because I have everything right here to show that you signed this, I signed this. You have to give me 6 months to pay you what's due, and I paid him. But he was not happy with me. He was pissed. Because
they wanted to get rich. Damn it.
Absolutely, they did. They did.
But that's what happens. And so, like, I tell them, like, hey guys. And then the contracts that I use to set up the companies, they're sticky. It's like, no, guys, this isn't no tag along, drag along bullshit. That's the deal. Yeah. And so, like, if you're going to be doing this, and it'd be one thing. It's like, well, I want to create this brand and roll it up in the license game where they're just always raising money, and then they declare bank. Well, they can't. They go into receivership because they run out of being able to raise money. But most of the people that I help to get into the industry, they want to do it like you're doing it, where they're operating it for their business. And when they're operating it for their business, then you should really be, okay, we let you in very, very carefully. We didn't expect you to get out. We kind of planned around that very specifically, saying like, here's what it, because with a lot of these, I'm assuming even in Oregon, like if you're trying to buy in or sell out, the state has to approve whomever you sell a license to, right?
Yeah, they do. They do.
Yeah, and that's one of the things where it's like you just can't. This isn't like any other company that you can own. This isn't owning like Apple stock. This is entirely different. And that some people try to renegotiate the deal after the deal, or they just those are the clients that I don't take anymore. I'm like, no, that was the deal. Don't come back 5 minutes later and be like, hey, we got a new deal. That wasn't agreed to. We didn't have no paper on that deal. Yeah.
And I tell people, like, I know it's simple, but read every agreement. I don't care if your lawyer reads it. Like, recently I was given an agreement to be a part of a cultivation team in Illinois. And part of what their agreement said was they're going to own future patent, current patent pending. They're going to own any intellectual property. They're going to own this, and this. My attorney didn't even read it. He would have just said, don't do business with them. Yeah. But I read the agreement before I even sent it to my attorney. And I called the person. I was like, I'm not sure if he thought I was stupid. I'm not sure if he knew who he was dealing with. But I was like, nah, you got to remove section 4.B because this is absolutely bullshit. Yeah. Like, but some people are signing this.
Yeah.
And some people are really signing this and thinking it's okay.
Well, then that company was really offering it and thinking that what they have is so freaking good, even though it's just cannabis. Everybody thinks they have the best genetics. Everybody thinks they have the best everything. And then it's just chutzpah and it's pride, and it's them thinking that their brand is going to be the best one. And all this IP and the future patents, which they can't do because it's illegal, and everything else like that, those usually don't matter. It's kind of like suing somebody. You've just basically said, I now have all these rights that if you want to protect those rights, you have to sue somebody to stop. Like, you can just make the same different. I mean, you could call it something else. It could have the fairly similar genetics, one small difference, whatever it is to get out of it. I mean, that's assuming that they could even get a plant patent, which they can't. And then they would have to sue you for infringement on it. But that company's probably not going to be around in 2 years, let alone have an IP treasure trove.
Well, I think what you're doing now, Seun, as far as making the moves with the interviews and the education, I mean, right there, you're your own IP. I mean, you are the branding. That's how it works. Tom and I, we've been doing the cannabis conversations for over 10 years, just talking about goddamn legalizing it. And, it's lots of stranger danger out there. People know who we are.
That's right.
They know just as much as you are. You offer more to the table is what my point being, though. Oh, I think he froze.
You may have froze. I hear Boston doesn't. Well, Massachusetts is not very well educated. Well, not well educated, but technologically savvy. They don't have like any wonderful university. Oh wait, no, he's smiling. I think he's.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. He was just trying to make it seem like he froze.
Yeah. No, I'm here.
Say, where are you talking from?
I'm in Eugene, Oregon right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm in Eugene. I just flew in yesterday. I just came back from Boston.
How is that flight? What's the coast to coast?
About 8 hours. It sucks.
8 hours, really?
Like about 8 hours. It's terrible.
It's like flying to France.
It sucks.
Chicago. Wow.
Yeah, it sucks. But it's part of the. I guess it's part of the hustle.
Well, you're preaching to the choir here, because like I go to Chicago all the time. I've really kind of stopped the past 2 weeks because it's just like, no, the teams need their applications done. So I don't have the time to like stop. 3 hours later, 4 hours later, I'm in Chicago, and then I have nothing to eat there. And so I have to go. I mean, it's too distracting. I mean, I'll start going back to and from after the applications are really, really taken care of. But the hustle's going to be real next year, man. New York, Pennsylvania, looks like Kentucky's coming online. Missouri's got a lot of opportunity. You might want to check them out. They're going to be trying to put it on the ballot again this year. They want to be one of the fastest to go to full legalization. South Dakota is trying to like skip medical and go to full legalization. What's the one near South Dakota next to Wisconsin? Minnesota looks like they might pop off and go the medical. I'm still waiting to see what Georgia's going to do about their huge, crazy, vertical integrated medical cannabis that they have. It looks a lot more like Florida's than anybody else's in the country. But it's going to be exciting the next 5 years.
I agree, and I think the true players are being determined right now. I think 5 years from now, we're all sitting on this show. We're gonna come look back on this like, hey, remember when we did an interview in 2020? You know, so I think this year is going to be amazing.
Yeah, me too. I'm really excited about it, and I wanted to thank you for coming on the show and spending more than an hour to kind of talk to us about your brand. Let me add, and I haven't done this yet. That's my own problem. Here, I'm going to put up your website. So if we found it, it's at Elev and then the number 8 cannabis.com, right?
Yep, elevate8cannabis.com.
So this is that new brand refresh that you did?
Yes, that's correct.
Hey, it looks great. Hey, one question that I have about pre-rolls, because the differences of pre-rolls, it depends on what state you're in. So in Illinois, you can't do pre-rolls at the dispensary. Is that different in all the other states that you're operating in?
Yeah, that's totally different. We can actually make, when we have shakes, we can turn those shakes into pre-rolls and sell it to the customers.
You can't have shake in Illinois either, because like this will be your pre-rolls. They're pre-packaged pre-rolls.
Gotcha.
So
everything is pre-packaged in Illinois. So in Oregon, for example, I call it dairy style. We actually weigh everything right in front of the customer. And we package everything right there in front of the customer.
I think that's such a better use. I think that's a better experience for the customer.
Yeah, it is a better experience for the customer, but it definitely, is a process, especially in a highly, the market right there. You guys are getting about 3,000 to 1,000 people per day. Here in Oregon, we're getting an average of about 300 people per day. So there's a huge difference.
Yeah, maybe one day after another 4 or 5 years in Illinois, we might have that availability with bulk flower sales. There's no such thing as bulk flower sales in Illinois. It's all prepackaged. And then, so that would be great though, because then you could have some branding. Do you have like Elev8 pre-rolls, a little stamp on the
Currently we don't, we just recently did their whole revamp, and our goal is to do that. So our goal is to really start selling, pre-rolls, wax, shatter, different concentrate cartridges and different things like that. So we're coming out, it's called Elev8 Farms. We just did the partnership in Mass, and we're looking to roll it out in Oregon pretty soon.
It's fantastic, man.
So you're also part of the business cannabis, or what's the association you're part of?
M for MM, is that what you're regarding to, or
I thought there was a Black Caucus you're a part of or something?
Yeah, you're talking about Black Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah. For cannabis?
So, we help them with just their cannabis education side of things, and, just as an advisory role on just what cannabis can do and how it can help the community, especially the Black Chamber of Commerce are looking at how they can penetrate the cannabis industry. And, for me, is like to see more minorities get in. That's my passion. So I'm on the advisory board just to kind of educate and aspire more people looking to get into it.
Man, you're doing great work though, man.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that. We also did a program called Elevate Our Community in Chicago, Illinois. When the bill went legal, like I said to you guys, it was about 850 pages. And I understand that not everybody's going to go in and read 850 pages. We also have the opportunity, other than Tom, if you're Tom,
let's be honest. I only read the first 300 because the second 300 were amendments to other statutes. So I had to read a few of those amendments, but a lot of them were criminal related, and I know nothing of criminal law. But then I did have to do the other 200 pages of the emergency rules, and then all the QAs that came out. So yeah, you have to stay on top of it and read it. But it's necessary. It's highly regulated.
I agree. It is. So we thought that we saw a huge opportunity to kind of go out to the Inglewood, for example, South Side of Chicago, West Side, go to Hyde Park and really educate our people, because nobody was going to go through that 850 pages. So what we did was we simplified it and created like a 30-page PowerPoint presentation where we shared the date that applications would due. We shared what licenses were available. We shared what social equity looked like and who qualified for social equity. So just really key components of the application process. We shared it with, social equity applicants that qualified. I remember going to Inglewood and we were passing out flyers. I ain't gonna lie, like at one point I was scared and I was like, I want to go.
Not the best.
Yeah,
Not the best.
it wasn't, but it was like I was so passionate to really get people that truly deserve the opportunity, at least the opportunity to be educated and know that they have the opportunity. Because a lot of times I think it's just lack of knowledge or knowing this was actually possible and actually seeing people do it and being motivated to be like, if you could do it, I could do it too.
No, I think Chicago's gonna cannabis is gonna be a lot of healing for Chicago area. When I was in the Navy, I had a friend who was a third generation vice lord. So I mean, I know the crime and the is inherently part of that culture, that backbone. So when you have this business come out of the limelight, it's going to show a lot of minority youths like, holy shit, this is not the drug that we're taught, opposed to like Coke or whatever. This is safer and, it's an opportunity for us, I think, to plant a seed and get better with it. Oh, they froze? Oh, you didn't freeze, did you?
Did you froze? Again. Well, maybe this time you actually did freeze. But anyway, I do want to thank Seun for coming on again.
Yeah, I appreciate him.
I bet if I do this, it'll fix it.
Wait. Oh, no, he left. Man down.
Nope. Man down. Maybe he'll come back on, but we've gone on for an hour and 10 minutes, and I thought he, just thanks for his time coming on because it's a sweet brand, and it was a lot of interesting informational content, I think, for our viewers.
Yeah, no, and I think from like you said, he came from nothing, and now he's bi-coastal with 2 stores and expanding, which is amazing.
Yeah, hopefully he'll get one of the ones in Illinois, but that one it may be a crapshoot just because of how many there are. However, I still think that that's really a play for ancillary businesses. That education concept of it. So if we were able to put together high quality online courses where you could get certifications of here's your books for managing your dispensary, here's how you do managing your craft grow, here's how you do all those things, here's how you stay compliant with what the state needs, those types of things, they're already kind of out there now, but there'll be more of them. Anyway,
shouldn't that be coming up in your guys' college courses, though, right? Probably.
There's also going to be college courses. There's going to be a lot of education in the future. Right now, I'm going to go talk about one of them real quick about the Kentucky one, because one of the Kentucky licenses looks like it's really going to be about the education.
Neat.
Nice. All right, guys. I just wanted to thank you all for coming on one of our Sunday shows. What do we call the Sunday show? The Cannabis Congregation. What is it? What do they say at the end of church? Go with God or something like that.
Amen.
Amen.